Excellent. Thanks, Lindsay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to open up the Town of Crossfield regular council meeting Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 7 p.m. We'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 7 territory and the Otipemisiwak Métis Government District 4. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our community. Okay, item 2.1. We do have an edit to the agenda. So whoever will make the motion tonight, please make the motion to take off item 10, closed session, off the agenda. That will be pushed to a future meeting. If there's no other additions or deletions to the agenda, can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that the March 4th, 2025 council agenda be accepted with the amendment of item 10, the closed session being removed from the agenda.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 3.1, February 18th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes. Are there any edits to those? There's no edits. Can I get a motion?
Good, sure.
Councillor Knighton.
A motion that the February 18th, 2025 regular council meeting minutes be accepted as presented.
All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, item 4.1, RCMP quarterly update. Sergeant Ian Patey, come on up.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be invited here again. Obviously, should be a familiar face, Constable Scott McWhinney. He does all the heavy lifting for me, so.
And for us.
Yes, well, that's good. So just to go over the Q3 report. Obviously that covers between October and December 2024. So under priority 1, crime reduction, there were 12 checks conducted this reporting period on 7 subjects that we've been monitoring in the rural area. This is under a project we call Project Arrow. So basically we monitor some of the prolific offenders and people have been released on conditions to make sure that they're being compliant. During that reporting period, we had removed some subjects and added some new ones. So of the 12 checks that were conducted, all were compliant with the exception of one, which resulted in the subject being breached on his conditions. The crime reduction unit for Airdrie Integrated Rural worked on 6 files. There were stolen vehicle files. Drug investigation where 2 accused were arrested and charged for possession of cocaine. In that particular investigation, 4 ounces of cocaine was seized. There was some stolen property investigation which resulted in a total value of $53,000 of stolen property recovered. Interesting firearms investigation. 1 man was arrested and charged for several firearms offense. He had 6 firearms and an inert military mortar bomb was located. First time I've seen that in 21 years, so that was quite interesting. Another drug investigation. There's 1 firearm and $1,000 worth of contraband tobacco seized. And stolen vehicle investigation. Surveillance was conducted. The accused was arrested and charged, and the vehicle was recovered. In terms of priority number 2, the rural crime community engagement, Scott's been very busy during that quarterly reporting period from October to December. I was able to update the SAFE program. We keep a database with regards to the school information that would assist us if we ever had any emergencies at the schools, any lockdowns, active shooters, stuff like that. Scott was able to partner with the fire hall to host a child seat clinic. where 15 car seats were inspected and positive feedback was received. Do you want to talk about what you did?
Sure,
Mhm.
sure.
So I don't have to do all the talk.
Yeah, for sure. Where's your laptop here? Okay. I identified local youths and ticketed them for doing good deeds in the community, where they each won small prizes and there was one grand prize winner. So that's things like one did like a Remembrance Day ceremony, was did a good talk at that, and then somebody was cleaning up garbage in town. They're all like youths that did this. One volunteered at the fire hall. And then the town filled their vacant community peace officer position in December. I introduced him to the community, and we both conducted a New Year's Eve check stop by the Harvest Restaurant. We had about 60 cars come through our check stop. We did a mandatory alcohol screening, so every car that went through, whether they had been drinking or not, had to provide a breath sample. And I'm very impressed to say that nobody failed a breathalyzer test that night, and it was well received by people that came through. In December, the local high school requested some RCP assistance with a physical fight between students in the school, where one student had a concussion. In lieu of criminal charges, I engaged both youths with some conflict de-escalation, where students exchange written apologies instead of going the criminal charge route. And then I attended all the board meetings with the Rural Crime Watch for this area, and I did myself and another officer did like a crime safety talk at a group in Madden and in Bragg Creek. Obviously, Bragg Creek's pretty far, but this is with the Rocky View County Area Rural Crime Watch, which is going to be changing its name to the Airdrie Rural Crime Watch pretty soon.
Thanks for that, Scott. With regards to rural crime, road safety, we've been, I wouldn't say overly busy, but there were at least 86 traffic enforcement activities, including tickets and warnings. And there had been 9 impaired driving related investigations resulting in impaired sanctions or suspensions. As a supervisor, I'll be quite frank with regards to the compliance checks and the number of tickets. I wasn't really excited. So I did have a chat with my supervisors and have requested that we see an increase in those numbers in this next upcoming quarter. So I'm looking forward to that. With regards to some community consultations, we obviously have had a few meetings with Russ just to make sure things are on track and we're meeting the desires and wishes of the community. Some of the other things that Scott had participated in was Stuff the Cruiser event with the fire department and RCMP that collected donations for the food bank and Remembrance Day ceremonies. We had a member also attend in Red Search duty at the Crossfield Pete Knight Memorial Arena. The event was organized by a U15 hockey team, and it was a charity hockey game for the emergency shelter fundraiser. And then with regards to our, I guess, resources, of the 5 established positions, 4 officers are currently working with, none on special leave. There's 1 hard vacancy at this time. And with regards to detached support, of the 2 established positions, 1 resource is currently working. There's 1 hard vacancy, however, it has been filled with a temporary term. That temporary term actually has been hired and is full-time now. That's the, I guess, flaw with the relatively later release of these stats is that it's not totally up to date. We're also always looking into the past. So with regards to the actual crime stats, I thought it was a relatively quiet quarter. Assaults went from 6 to 7 in this past if you compare it to the same quarter last year. And then criminal harassment was up from 1 up to 3. I did review a lot of these files. I could comment on the assaults. The majority of the assaults were domestic related. So, domestic violence, so that's something we need to be looking at. With regards to B&Es, we've had several B&Es in the businesses. And with property stolen, such as trailer tools. And of the 6 B&Es that I looked into, there was only 1 B&E to a residential garage. The rest were the businesses. With regards to theft of motor vehicles, there was 4 vehicles, theft of motor vehicle investigations in the quarter. And there was 4 frauds. The frauds range from phone scams to internet and text messages where all 4 basically involve taking over or getting access to someone's bank account. So that's about all I have for the crime stats, and just a couple other things to report on. We're currently next week and the week after completing our training in Airdrie on the body worn cameras. So they will be put in use by the end of this month. So we're rolling that out. Got a lot of feedback, positive feedback from our neighboring detachment saying that it's been well received by the people of the community. So looking forward to that. And then one of the things we had talked to Russ about this morning is possibly having a town hall meeting at the end of this month or in April. I know the city of Airdrie just completed one this past week. I know in the past, from what I've been told today, was that usually the rural one is more of a virtual one. So I know our inspector's working hard on getting that set up. So we'll let you guys know when that's all set up and ready to go. And that's about it. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions? Counselor Gustafson?
Through the chair. I do have a question on the priority 1.
Yeah.
Just maybe a little clarification on here. So you were monitoring 7 subjects in the rural area. Mostly compliant. Does those 7 subjects correlate with the crime reduction unit with the 6 files? Are those reoffenders or are we allowed to disclose?
No, that's totally separate.
That's a separate, so we are, and you can say yes or no, I guess.
Yeah.
Do we know if those are reoffenders on those 6 that are below there?
I'm not sure if they were previous under investigation. I'd have to look specifically at those files.
Okay,
I didn't notice any familiar names when I looked through the files today.
Okay.
But yeah, we're seeing, and just a comment, this past month, we had a lot of break and enters and vehicle thefts from a prolific offender out of Calgary. So in the year and a half that I've been in Airdrie, he's very well known to all of us. He's been under investigation numerous times. He's been caught numerous times. And the recent crime spree, he started in Airdrie, came out to Crossfield, went up to Carstairs, which involved, I think, in a week, 3 vehicle pursuits. And then we are actually lucky to work with CPS, and we're able to apprehend him as he left a residence and was hiding in the back of an Uber. So he was, you'll see in the next quarter in terms of some stats, I could say with confidence that it was him and, well, one other person who were yet to identify, but basically was responsible for a lot of the crime in the last couple months in and around Airdrie and Crossfield and Carstairs.
yeah, and I guess if he was doing it multiple times, been caught multiple times, it's just it gets out of your guys' hands and into the other system where maybe that's just a bit of a letdown on to the rest of the residents.
100%, and we feel the frustration as well.
Yeah.
I know my members are very frustrated with it. I'll remain professional, not
Yes,
express my personal opinions on it, but it makes it very difficult. And I know a lot of the times it's looked upon us as we're the people releasing.
Yep.
That's definitely not the case. Yeah,
it's just the system and how it works and, you know, I guess I think even as council, we feel a little helpless that we can't do anything to prevent those reoffenders from coming back and, harming our residents. So
100%.
I know we feel helpless that way, but how can we change that? I'm not sure. It's maybe just some lobbying towards, you know, the government to crack down on these reoffenders.
No, 100%. And I know we were all hands on deck
Yep.
when we realized who it was. Not that we wouldn't have been if that wasn't the case, but because of the repeat offender situation. So we worked quite well with it was us, Didsbury and Calgary Police. And like I say, even Calgary Police, they were quite eager to help us out. They had hawks up in the air for us, and
Mhm.
they had a TAC team ready in Calgary. So we worked well in order to get that subject in custody. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I have a question on your priority one as well. You talk about 7 subjects in the rural area.
Yep.
And you're doing the 12 checks conducted. Are those in Crossfield? And how many are in Crossfield?
2, I could say with certain. I haven't looked at the most recent list. I know we have a meeting every month for probation, and depending on their status with regards to their sentencing in court, so that could change. But there's currently 2. But like say that fluctuates, and it would fluctuate by the month potentially.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And yeah, we all feel your frustration with the catch and release program that we currently have.
Glad you said that.
And it has zero reflection on you guys. Things do need to change, and
I appreciate that.
hopefully that'll be changing sooner than later.
I hope so too.
I just want to say I like your new format of how you're presenting to us. It's very straightforward. It breaks it down for us, so it's an easy read. So thank you for that.
I just have one last thing. I think it might have been you, Luke, that asked last quarter, asked a question to me with regards to other criminal code.
Yeah.
So I talked about driving offenses, and I did a bit of research, and in 2024, the kind of what we call violations that would have fallen under that category was actually a little bit more than just driving. So just to give you an example of some, and this is all of 2024, not just Q3, but under that category, things like weapons possession contrary to an order, failure to comply with an order. So that's if you're released on conditions. That's actually a very popular one. Disturb the peace, cause a disturbance, trespass at night, fail to comply with probation order, uttering threats against property or animal, disobeying a court order, and causing damage or injury to an animal or bird. So that's all in 2024, the investigations that would have fallen under that other criminal code category for Crossfield.
Jared? Sounds fairly broad. I didn't know that was encompassed.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I had to do some research because I wasn't 100% confident in the answer I gave you, so I thought I'd do some research on that, and that's what I came back with. Again, kind of to come hammer back on the point of catch and release, there's a lot of fail to comply in that list, so
Mhm.
unfortunately.
I appreciate you looking into that.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in and presenting. Appreciate that. Can I get a motion on item 4.1? Go ahead.
Move the council accept the RCMP 2-3 update.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, item 5, bylaws, 5.1. Thank you. 2025-02 waste and recycling bylaws. Director of Infrastructure and Community Growth, Steve Altedo.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening, Council. Steve Altina, Director of Infrastructure Community Growth, to present item 5.1 tonight about waste management and recycling bylaw update. So the purpose of this report is to present that bylaw 2025-02 for Council's consideration. This bylaw updates the current waste management recycling bylaw 2016-17 to align with the permitted recyclable materials with requirements of the upcoming Extended Producer Responsibility Program, the EPR program for short. Which comes into effect April 1st, 2025, so coming up. So just a reminder for council, this was discussed a little bit last year, I believe through correspondence with council in June and July. But the EPR is a policy approach where producers are given significant responsibility for the treatment or disposal of post-consumer products. Currently, products sold in Alberta become waste managed by municipalities once they reach their end of their life. The EPR shifts this responsibility back to producers, thereby reducing the financial burden on municipalities and encouraging producers to design more sustainable products. The town has chosen the opt-in option, which allows the town to manage our current curbside collection program under a service agreement with Circular Materials, so continuing to manage that Blue Planet contract, through which they will reimburse the town for recycling costs. The service agreement itself was executed on January 16th of this year. It contains specifications for what's considered a recyclable material. The town's list of permitted recyclable materials differs slightly from the CM agreement, notably on flexible plastics. Plastic bags will no longer be permitted as a recyclable material unless they have a number on them, 4 or 5. So administration proposed an amendment to the bylaw to align with the requirements of that agreement and the EPR program in general. Just a little bit of update on the financial implications of that EPR program, just to add a little bit more context to this. Under the town's agreement with Circular Materials, the town will receive remuneration to cover almost all the costs of the recycling program. In 2024, the town spent a little over $123,000 on curbside recycling, and that included a per dwelling per month fee of $585 and $100 per ton tipping fees. That's from Blue Planet. With the agreement with Circular Materials, which takes effect again April 1st, they will cover almost all the dwelling per month costs and the tipping fees. This leaves the town responsible for net contracting costs of approximately $35,000 to $40,000 this year, mainly for the months of the program before the program was active. And next year, when the program is fully active for an entire year, the town would be responsible for about $3,000 to $4,000 recycling costs next year. So a significant decrease from the $123,000. So given those cost reductions to the program with the budget this year, we will be bringing forward a proposed decrease in recycling fees for residents. Obviously, a significant decrease. We're still working out what that number actually is, but that'll come through with the budget this year. So just to wrap it up, update to the waste management recycling bylaw to align with that EPR framework and what they consider recyclable materials. We recommend that council provide first through third reading on the bylaw update. I'm available for any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Questions?
Through the chair.
Councilor Knight.
It might not be a question, more of just a comment. If we could put together some little neat post out there to our social media parts where what's new, what's changed, just a few things like that. Just to make people aware, there's a couple small things, it's not maybe, but as I'm sure we're going to, but just a bit of a follow-up to, we can just put something together in a notification of, hey, this is coming.
Some education and engagement.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If I may, through the chair, thanks, Councilor Knight. I did skip that part in my presentation there, the communications engagement. Certainly we will be doing a communications program. Circular Materials will actually be providing a lot of the communications material, and they do provide some funds for communications activities. So there's a small fund to conduct that resident education. That'll be rolling out in the coming weeks here. Those materials will be provided to the town kind of mid-March, and then we'll be doing a social media campaign and things like that. And there's posters we can print and put up around town and things like that. So all those changes will certainly be communicated to residents.
Awesome.
Thank you for the comment.
Excellent. Good news for our residents.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move forward. You have a question?
You need a motion, don't you?
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Would you like to make the first motion? Councilor Gustafson.
Certainly, Mayor, through the chair. I'll move that bylaw 2025-2 waste and recycling bylaw be given first reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Second reading?
Through the chair. I'll make the motion that the wastewater management and recycling bylaw 2025-02 be given second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Third reading,
Through the chair,
Counselor Lambert.
I'll make the motion that bylaw 2025-02 waste and recycle bylaw be brought forward for third and final reading with unanimous consent.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And last reading,
Chair.
Counselor Brenner. All in favor?
Aye.
And motion carried. Thank you.
Please take the ones.
Okay, policies. Item 6.1, procurement policy. CFO Amber Lett.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to present a report on the updated procurement policy, policy number C 301-25. So the purpose of this report is to receive council approval to rescind the current procurement policy and to adopt the new procurement policy C 301-25. So the town of Crossfield needed to update the current policy to reflect quite a few changes. Some of them include adjustments to trade agreements, such as the Canadian Free Trade Agreement and the new US Partnership Trade Agreement weren't reflected in the existing policy. There is an expanded list of definitions included in the policy. Relevant financial and non-financial factors were defined to help clarify best value factors. Additional sections specifically referencing limited tenders, local vendors, emergency purchases, and no split procurements. So more definition in those areas which our current policy lacked. There's a robust reference to authority and responsibility with recognition of council's authority and responsibility, along with changes to reflect the town of Crossfield business structure, job titles, and roles. So council's authority in relation to procurement includes the approval of the capital and operating budgets each year. And administration's responsibility from there is to implement the budget as approved by council. There was further revision to the delegation of purchasing authority value thresholds to recognize inflationary factors and other things. And then we stripped out some of the procedural components from the policy document and developed the procurement policy manual as a supporting document. So tonight's recommendation, I'm looking for two recommendations. One, that council rescind the current procurement and purchasing policy as established in June 2012, and then to adopt the new procurement policy as outlined in this report.
Thank you, Amber.
Oh, I have a little bit more I'd like to cover, if that's okay.
Sure.
So just to provide a little background to the process, administration continues to undergo a review of existing policies that need to be updated, and this policy was identified as a priority due to changing legislation and the level of risk associated with procurement. Also, recognizing that public sector business processes and procedures are meant to deliver risk mitigation and ensure due diligence and strong financial governance, but they also must not impair its effectiveness. So some of the reasons why we wanted to highlight and bring forward this policy was also to reflect the town's growth, the project complexity that we're experiencing, and the organizational structure that's changed in the last 13 years. Finally, also want to reflect on some inflationary pressures that have increased the value of projects and diminished the value of money. And I think aside from that, I just want to note that there are two attachments to this report, one being the policy and the other the procurement procedure manual. So I'm available to answer any questions that you have.
Excellent. Thanks, Amber. Just, and maybe this question might be for Lindsay, but this council, when we had past CEO, Keenan, passed a policy around spending limits and stuff. Was that not, that would be after this 2012 one. Would it have been the same policy? Or was that different spending limits that were implemented on the CAO for capital, and that's different?
Yeah.
So do you think that we would have to also rescind that policy? Because it wouldn't align with the amounts and whatnot that are in here for directors and everything else. Okay, well, we'll have discussion while you're looking for that, and we'll see where that goes. All right, questions? Anybody have questions? Councilor Gustafson, go
Through the
ahead.
chair. It just like, and I know there's a lot to digest here, but I'm not sure if even like maybe legal counsel had to take a look at this to make sure that even like purchasing to make sure that if like, was there any liability for council at all on purchasing? Because it all relies back on us approving the budget. Is that correct? Other than the other, like, sorry, other than the direct purchases below 20?
I'm not sure what maybe, can you reword your question?
Like I guess I see the requirement for open competitive may not apply for purchasing on, and then there's a whole bunch of like even legal services, investments, all of that, is that may not apply. I was a little confused by that, by open competition.
Are you looking for a definition of open competition, or?
Well, why would it be, why would we put in a requirement for an open competition may not apply for the purchases of, for example, purchases of land or investments or legal services? We don't do that, or?
Yep, through the chair. Okay, thank you, Councillor Gustafson. There's some situations where open competition doesn't necessarily apply. I think land is a really good example because, there's one parcel of land isn't necessarily similar to another, especially if it's the town or municipality looking to purchase land. So it's not as if you could ask vendors to submit proposals on the land that we would purchase. Obviously, there's all different factors associated with that. As far as some other things, for example, employment, we're not, there's no open competition to, our payroll and salary costs and stuff like that. And typically legal services wouldn't fall within an open competition. Only I don't think it's, I suppose I'm at a little bit of a loss for words to explain why that is. But other things like utility contracts, typically.
Yeah, like I'm a little confused about even like, so I can see about the land, but the legal services, why would we not tender that out? Like, is it just, we just picking somebody and sticking with them? Like, because we like them, or we like what they do, or they're the cheapest, or they provide the best services. We don't know that. Let's
Okay, well, I think I can try to I'll just
take a
try to
stab at that
swing
one.
at this one here through the chair. I think the risk would be that in a open proposal, we would have to outline exactly what our legal challenges were in a document that would be available to anyone who could respond to it, and that could potentially cause more harm than good. That would become out of a open competition.
Yeah, but I'm not looking for a specific, looking for, like, because we have counsel right now, legal counsel we use.
Mhm.
Like just on a generic basis, looking, we send them something to look at.
Right.
Like, that's where I'm getting at is how do we retain such legal counsel on a general basis?
Okay.
Like, maybe I'm reading into this wrong, but is that something that we can, like, hey, this is what they, a general legal counsel is going to charge per hour for general legal counsel.
Okay.
I'm not looking for something, a specific item, but
Yeah, I think that CEO Kinsey may be able to answer.
okay, go ahead.
Through the chair. So municipalities are bound by many different structures when it comes to procurement. There are different agreements that we have to fall in alignment with, and this policy was built around that structure. So it's one that mimics what many other municipalities have adopted. I would say there are some services that municipalities are not required to follow the normal procurement process for, like going to tender, those sorts of things. And those are the types of things that you're seeing on this list. So investments, for example, is another one that's just slightly above that when it comes to financial services and investments. That's not something that we are required to go to market for. It's not something we would not follow the natural procurement process for. So the items you're seeing listed here are the types of items that municipalities typically do not go follow your typical procurement process for. If we're purchasing a product, like you'll see in some of our other reports, we're going to buy a loader that was approved by council, then we have to go through the procurement process for like that. What you're seeing here and the list that's saying that those items are not applicable to open competition are the typical categories that you see for municipalities that don't fall under that open competition structure.
Through the chair. So I'd like to challenge that a bit. The whole idea of procurement is to get the best value for your ratepayers. So how do we know that we are getting the best value for investments in land, in legal counsel? How can we measure that?
Through the chair. When we're looking at investments and we're working with different parties to manage the investment portfolio for the town, those are not things we do blindly. I would say we still shop around and we look at who's going to give us the best return on the investments that we're choosing to invest. So I don't want to create the perception that we're not shopping around for that. We would speak with multiple investment firms to see what they can provide us, what rate of return they can provide us, and what limitations or barriers we would have to investing with those different firms, of course. But having said that, we don't make it an open competition. So I guess it's really looking at the description around open competition.
Mm-hmm.
So those items are not part of an open competition, that they're not going to tender. There's no RFP issued for them,
That's fine.
but it doesn't mean we're not looking for best value.
Mhm.
So we would never, ever blindly invest the town's funds with an investment firm without first shopping around to see where we're going to get the best value. How liquid are those funds? How easily can we access them? Does that align with our cash flow requirements? Those are all pieces that we would look at from an investments perspective. And we would invest accordingly in alignment with how we're permitted to invest as a municipality. So we can't, there's a lot of things we can't invest in as municipal government, but with inside those parameters, those are some of the pieces we'd be looking at as it relates to investments. So I don't want to, like I said, create the perception that because it's not classified as open competition, that it's just whoever shows up first. That's definitely not the case. There is still shopping around. It's just in a different form.
So I have one last thing. So sticking on the investment, and I'll just leave it at that. What are the checks and balances to ensure that we are shopping around? Like what is the procedure? Is there any policy behind that? It won't be in here, but is there any checks and balances to know that, hey, there could be maybe some possibility that things may have, could have been done better or
Yeah, I think the CFO, Amber Ouellette, will
Thank you.
have an answer for
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair, to Councillor Gustafson. The next policy in the list of financial governance policies that I'll be bringing forth to council is an investment policy. We do currently have a 22-year-old investment
Okay.
policy. So that's why we'd like to freshen that one up and bring it back to you, hoping I have it planned for May. So we'll say Q2.
22 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're definitely peeling open the layers there and looking into all of our
Mhm.
policies. Yep. So we'll have a modernized investment policy to come forward shortly.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Any other questions from council? I have one. For the direct purchase and the informal competitive process, under that 75,000 for goods and services,
Mm-hmm.
will the PO act as the agreement? And do we have a PO process currently instated in Crossfield?
Currently, we have an informal PO process wherein folks oftentimes will use their name or something like that at a vendor, and that's how it's attached. So aside from, making purchases that are within the budget, approved budget, there is no formal process. However, our financial system does enable purchase orders, and we will, through the approval of this policy and the implementation of the procedure manual, implement purchase orders in a limited kind of fashion. It won't be for everything because they can also just bog down and create a lot of extra red tape. Like if we're cutting a PO for a box of Band-Aids or whatever it is. So there has to be some structure around that, but definitely if you're cutting a PO, then you would assume that your expenses wouldn't exceed that agreed upon amount.
Yeah,
So in the lack of having a formal agreement, a PO is technically
yes.
a form of.
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing that we mitigate with that, but there are some contractors too who, in the absence of an agreement, want to use their own agreement. And I'm a firm believer in the town using our own agreements or our own processes so that we protect the town, and it's not just them protecting their interest, and which is, it usually leans towards them. And there are some that even under the 10,000 mark or even under the 20,000 mark want a type of agreement. But if we can have a process or use the PO or whatever that looks like, that doesn't bog down like internal processes, but
Mhm.
still protects the town in that way, then I would like to see that implemented in addition to this policy.
Oh, absolutely. Through the chair, there's aside from the policy and the procedure manual, we are also creating templates, town templates for RFP documents, request for quotes. So we'll have some templates developed, and by extension, I'm sure some a contract, a standard contract for
Yes.
more basic purchases could definitely be, form up a part of that set of tools that we have to help us enable us to procure goods and services.
Right, and just a bit of a tracking system internally too, like, just to ensure, like, did you get your 3 quotes? Did you shop around? What did that look like? Who sent you a quote?
Yep.
Who said no? Just a bit of a tracking format or system. And I think what that does is it protects our staff. In these procurement processes, so, other vendors can't come back and say, hey, you didn't do due process, or you didn't do this. Just always nice to have something in writing or something on paper.
Mm.
And my
Again,
last thing on this is you have director, CFO, and department managers under the position for approval of divisional budgets and individual procurement up to 200,000. I'm just curious why the department managers are included in that. Just from, maybe we always fall back on past experience or experience that, even the city of Airdrie, I don't think their managers can spend that much.
Right.
So I'm just curious why it's in there, not just directors and CFO, and of course the CEO.
Through the chair, I think we've recently gone through a restructuring where we have a very narrow band in that manager position. So that's and typically in the past they were in a director role, so they do still oversee a large portion of our budget area. So that's why we've kept just sort of the senior leadership team in that $200,000 threshold. However, in the future, if there were further changes in our org structure where there were more management type positions, then we would definitely look at maybe creating an additional approval layer in there.
So we have more than one manager at the town currently. And I'm just curious, would it be the director approving that, or would it be a manager approving that?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so we do have more than one manager at the town.
I think we just have one.
Probably. Okay, so it would just be the one manager?
Yep.
Supervisor.
Okay, so I guess my question there would be, how often, I guess not very often, does that department manager see something up to $200,000 and not just up to the 75?
That would be very rare occurrence.
Okay. And that's all the questions I had.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? If there's no other questions, then we'll move to motions.
Through the chair,
Councilor Lambert.
make the motion that council rescind the current procurement and purchasing policy 2012-03 as established in June 2012.
Can I just pause there, Lindsay? Did you find anything?
Mayor Hirsch, no, I did not. There looked like there was only an annual budget policy approved and an asset management policy.
Okay, well, how about we do these motions, but if you find something, then we'll bring it back to council and rescind it. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
I,
Motion carried. And the next motion,
To the
Chair.
Counselor Knight.
I motion that council adopt the new procurement and policy as outlined in the report dated March 4th, 2025, titled procurement policy.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
That's motion carried. Thank you. You might as well just sit right there because you're up next. Item 7.1, 2024 preliminary financial results, CFO Amber Roulette.
Thank you very much. The purpose of this report is to outline the preliminary 2024 year-end results compared to the approved budget. These results are unaudited and subject to change until the approval of the 2024 financial statements. So there's 3 recommendations. That council accept the 2024 preliminary year-end financial results as information, and that council approve a transfer of $500,000 to the unrestricted operating reserve, and that council approve a transfer of $500,000 to the general purpose capital reserve. So the 2024 preliminary year-end results show an operating surplus of $1.188 million. The surplus is a result of excess revenue over expenditures, including transfers to and from reserves. The preliminary operating surplus of $1.188 million is primarily attributed to the following factors. Investment income that's greater than anticipated returns it is attributed to 31% of the surplus. Sales and user fees, this is related to increased utility revenue due to community growth and additional facility user fees that represents 14% of the surplus. Salaries, wages, and benefits were lower than expected, and this is due to unplanned vacancies. This expense type is attributed to 29% of the surplus. Contracted and general services are reduced expenditures in legal and professional services, including snow and ice clearing and building inspection services accounted for 23% of the surplus. Materials, goods, supplies, and utilities, decreased expenditures for repair and maintenance, water purchases are offset by higher than expected power and natural gas costs, account for 20% of the surplus. And finally, transfers to reserves. Unbudgeted transfers of investment income to reserves negatively impact the surplus by 24%. The remainder of the surplus can be attributed to an accumulation of smaller variances across several budget categories. Proposed transfers to reserve. It is common practice for municipalities to allocate a portion of their operating surplus to reserves. The most common application is to allocate a portion of the operating surplus to an operating reserve that is intended to cover one-time operating expenditures, emergency expenditures, or to smooth the impact of unpredictable or unanticipated events, sometimes referred to as a tax stabilization reserve. Surplus funds are also commonly transferred to supplement capital reserves. Capital reserves that typically receive surplus transfers include general purpose capital reserves established for purposes such as new construction or land purchases. Administration will bring forth a reserve strategy and policy for council's consideration in Q3 2025. That'll be the third one. However, in the absence of a formal policy, administration is recommending that council consider the following reserve transfers. So the $500,000 to an unrestricted operating reserve and $500,000 to a general purpose capital reserve. The amounts transferred are equivalent to 84% of the operating surplus. Since this is a new initiative for us, administration would like to err on the side of conservatism and not fully allocate the operating surplus. Any operating surplus that remains at the conclusion of the financial audit will flow through to accumulated surplus. Funds transferred to reserves can be accessed to both operating and capital reserves can be accessed through a motion from council. in case you were wondering how we get those funds. So aside from the operating summary, we also have the capital report attached for your information. It represents 55% of the capital budget that's been spent as of the end of 2024. And just wanted to mention a few alternatives or options that council may consider. If council does not approve or council can choose to not approve the recommended transfers to each of the unrestricted operating or general capital reserve for $500,000, or council may approve an alternate amount to each of the previously mentioned reserves. I am available for questions.
Excellent. Any questions? Okay. Looks like there isn't any questions or comments. Thanks for the good information. I appreciate that. Can I get the first motion, please?
Chair.
Council Brennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Second motion,
Through the chair,
Deputy Mayor.
make the motion that council approve to transfer of 500,000 to the unrestricted operating reserve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And the last motion,
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Lambert.
make the motion that council approve the transfer of 500,000 to the general corporate capital reserve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, Amber.
You're welcome. I'm just going to stay here if it's all right by you. I
Yeah.
have the the next report
You're up next again
after you
after,
guys.
after us. You don't want your seat to get cold. All right, item 8, Councilor's business. I attended the grad fundraiser on Saturday. It was excellent. Probably the best grad fundraiser I've ever been to. Like I've said to a few people, it's better than selling cookie dough. So I'd rather go to, a concert with a local band and see the community participate. It was, just a ton of fun. I went to the Rutabaga Bowl, lost to the kids again. No big surprise there. And the farmer's market, bought probably more stuff than I wanted to. I attended, the CEO meetings the last couple weeks, 2 Midtown Mayor's Caucus meetings this week in preparation for our Midtown Mayor's meeting at the Spring Caucus. We're introducing the Mayor's Caucus to 84 towns of our size. So we'll be presenting that tomorrow night. And then last night I was at the Politics and Prosecco with Minister Schultz, where the Premier was there as well. And proceeds of that went to Paul Brandt's initiative on human trafficking. Human trafficking has no place in Alberta. Notinmycity.ca is where you can find more information about that and be able to detect victims of human trafficking. So I would say not in our town either. Deputy Mayor.
Mine is, I have a couple things coming up. So on March 14th, I'll be doing my SDAB training. And Mayor Harris and I actually have a rec board meeting on March 31st.
Councilor Brennan. Councilor Gustafson.
On February the 26th, we had a Rockview Foundation meeting. Just gonna give a few highlights from the meeting there on the occupancy for the lodges and self-contained. So right now, Abrio Place sits at 100%. And we have, it looks like 41 on the wait list to get into Abrio Place. Big Hill Lodge, we're sitting at 84%. It's an older lodge that we're getting, because it's owned by the provincial government, getting some repairs, needed repairs that have to be done to the lodge. here in town at Rocky View Lodge. We're at 100%. We've got 4 on the waiting list there. Self-contained, across the board, we're almost at 100% with lots on the waiting list. Total of 194 on the waiting list for self-contained. So lots of seniors housing is desperately needed. We're working on Cochrane and Bragg Creek simultaneously to get some additional housing there. And again, or as well, I went to the grad fundraiser, not with Mayor Harris, on my own.
Well, you weren't totally by yourself.
I wasn't. There was lots of people that we knew there, so it was a great fundraiser. And that is about it for me.
Thank you. Counselor Knight,
Nothing to report.
Counselor Lambert,
Nothing to report.
Counselor Bang.
I attended the farmer's market as well, and Cheryl did a really good job again. Just wanted to say good job to her, and there were lots of good vendors here.
Yeah, and it was their 50th anniversary too. So pretty neat.
Yep.
Thank you. Excellent. Can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
Counselor Knight,
I motion that the counselor's business be accepted as presented.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Amber, look at that. You're up again. Item 9.1, administrative update, CFO Amber Roulette.
Thank you very much. Just going to highlight some of the administrative activity during the month of February. In the Public Works and Infrastructure area, the operations team was kept very busy managing ice during the freezing temperature and then addressing water backups with quick melt. Snow was removed from Railway Street and other areas that had built up due to drifting and other factors. Planning and development. The town received 15 development permit applications, including 9 applications for new homes so far in 2025. Sorry, the MDP received first reading on February 18th, and public engagement for the MDP will be conducted in March. There'll be an open house scheduled for March 26th, and the MDP will return to council in May or June for a public hearing. Under public safety, timeline for the delivery of the new fire engine is estimated at May 2025. And the town did receive the debenture funds on February 28th for payment of the fire truck. The RFP for fire service master plan has been completed and posted. It is anticipated that the consultant will be chosen in early April to begin phase 1 of this process, being the community risk assessment. Under community service or customer service and engagement, administration is training the eScribe training is ongoing with council and department directors to receive training taking place in the coming month with the anticipated launch of the system on April 15th. In community services and events, grant applications have been submitted to TC Energy to support for a rapid intervention team response pack for the fire department, Volunteer Alberta to enhance funding for National Volunteer Week, and Active Transportation Fund to support pathway and sidewalk replacement, as well as pedestrian safety enhancements at crossings. And there's an RFP for upgrades to the outdoor rink in Amory Park has been completed and posted, and it is anticipated that a contractor will be selected in early April. In administrative services, some recruitment updates. The new accounting technician position was filled in early February by Mason Smaby, and interviews are in progress for the executive assistant position, which is a new position in 2025, the administrative clerk vacancy, and the HR and payroll administrator position, which is a temporary 12-month term. And that concludes the administrative update for February 2025.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions from council? All right. Can I get a motion? Counselor Brennan? All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, item 9.2, outstanding items list, CO Barney.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Nothing too significant here this evening. There are two items, 053 and 051, that I would request the removal of as they are noted as completed.
All right, any questions for CO Barney? If there's no questions, can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
Counselor Lambert,
I'll make the motion that items 051 and 053 be removed from the outstanding items list.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Excellent. Just a motion to adjourn.
Through the chair, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Excellent, thank you.